So we are at a global inflection point. Effective tomorrow, Iran will practically close the Strait of Hormuz, and Iranian state media have conveyed that they will only allow tankers in with the permission of the Iranian state. In consequence to this, you will now have a new revised price of oil. You'll be looking at about $300 to $400 per barrel. To put that into perspective, we're at about $76 per barrel right now. The average UK gas price, or as we call it here, petrol, unleaded petrol price is roughly 136 pence per litre. You'd be looking at, I just ran the figures myself, so you'd be looking at about £3.45 per litre. That'd be the new revised price. So of course, essentially overnight the UK economy would cease to exist. Wages wouldn't be able to readjust quick enough to meet that demand or that new economic reality. And of course businesses would collapse, the logistical system would be in tatters. Essentially it would be over for the UK. We're already at a sort of, civil strife, and the country essentially is tearing itself apart at the seams. So that would basically be the death knell. In terms of the US, the current average gas price is $3.19 per gallon. If it went up to $400 a barrel, you're looking at a new revised national average of about $10.65 average price per gallon of regular gasoline. So I don't have to spell out what that would mean for the US economy. But in terms of the global economic situation, primarily in the West, right? Because Eurasia and the East would be far better placed and insulated from this. In terms of the West, you'd be looking at overnight a global economic meltdown. And that is due to the global economy being intricately linked to the price of oil. And it's a primary energy source, of course, and it's a crucial input for a multitude of industries that are of strategic importance to the nation, to the civilization really, and to the global economy itself. Again, that's from transportation and manufacturing to agriculture and plastics. Effectively you would have a quadrupling of the current oil price, a bit more than that, but in practical terms it's a quadrupling of the current oil price. Essentially you would have famines, you would have a lack of manufacturing, productivity would almost slump to zero, the just-in-time system would be pretty much over, supermarkets would be finished, you would have a breakdown in social cohesion and order. It would effectively be over for the West, right? You would also have hyperinflation and a monetary crisis. And that would be the most immediate and direct impact of this. It'd be a massive surge in inflation. The cost of producing and transporting virtually all goods would escalate dramatically, and that would lead to an across-the-board price hike for consumers, one that would be completely unaffordable. Central banks, of course, would be caught in an impossible bind at a catch-22. Aggressively raise interest rates to combat hyperinflation, thereby crushing economic activity. And subsequently exacerbating the recession that would come about from this, or allow inflation to run rampant, which would erode savings and destabilize the financial system by essentially destroying people's confidence within the monetary system, the petrodollar system, the dollar itself. They would lose confidence in it, and, well, yeah, it would be over for the dollar as a reserve currency, and therefore to scatter to the four winds would be this idea of American hegemony. So there would also be a deep global recession. You would have, plummeting consumer demand, astronomical energy costs. So you would have industry that would be forced to scale back operations. Investments would be slashed across the board. Mass layoffs on an unprecedented scale. This would result in a rise in unemployment, which would further depress consumer spending, of course, and it would create a vicious downward spiral, not just economically, but societally. Crime would rise. You would be living within a very predatory system, a predatory society, and life would become cheap. Very, very cheap. Overnight, almost. Entire sectors, particularly those with high energy consumption, like, say, aviation or shipping or heavy industry, construction, they would all face collapse. And this is at a time where you have, well, unprecedented levels of immigration. So you've already got this plurality of people, this patchwork of nations. And at that same time, you have this breakdown of the very fragile economic fabric. And of course, you would find a consequent breakdown of the very fragile social fabric as well. So you would have a sort of helter-skelter type scenario taking place almost automatically, right? And of course, you would have geopolitical instability and social unrest, as I've mentioned. The economic recession, or should I say depression, that turmoil would only fuel significant geopolitical instability. So oil importing from developing nations would be hit the hardest. And that would lead to sovereign debt crises across the board. Social unrest, political upheaval, an increase in wars, and an increase in the volume of violence worldwide as well. So tensions between oil-producing and oil-consuming nations would also escalate, right? And the risk over the risk of conflicts over resources would also intensify. So on the back of this, of course, the US, before it went under, and the West, before it went under, would seek to destroy Iran at any and all costs, and that would be the continuum of force would be accelerated. By that, what I mean is they will get to use an indiscriminate violence and force to attempt to save their regimes, which at that point would be basically on life support. And of course, it goes without saying, you would have a financial market collapse, right? Corporate profits would evaporate. The value of assets that are tied to the fossil fuel economy would also be, utterly decimated. And the very intricate, yet very fragile web of global finance would be utterly strained. right? It would be brought to its breaking point, and that would raise the spectre of a systemic financial crisis and a systems collapse. But of course, I don't believe that's going to happen. I think the US, as soon as that is triggered tomorrow by Iran, I think by Friday, they will be at war with them. Mark my words. I think they will begin strategic bombing of Iran by probably Friday. I already know from certain Americans that I speak to that they are, cousins and brothers and family members that are in the military, in the infantry, the frontline troops. They're already being repositioned in places like Israel, the garrisons that surround Iran, the countries, and US bases that surround Iran in those neighbouring countries. Those garrisons are also being bolstered, and the supply of munitions there and such, they are being galvanised, so they're being added to in a manner that looks as though it's anticipatory of violence. So they're preparing to unleash literal hell against the Iranian people. This is all about paving the way for effectively an Israeli empire within the Middle East. Iran is the final domino to fall, and it's really about preparing the world for the 6th millennium, where the king of the world, this all-powerful sovereign of the world, will take his place, shall be coronated and enthroned as the reigning monarch of the new world dominion, this new order of the ages. Really, that itself is in preparation for the end of time, right? The final redemption. You're really dealing with quite an insane outlook on the future and such, by these very cultic and zealous fanatics that reside not just really in Israel, they reside all over the planet. This is a mystery religion essentially, and it doesn't really have an ethnicity. It doesn't respect borders. It's internationalist at its crux, and moreover as well, it understands that it, as an organisation, birthed all of the religions of the world. All of the various religions are mere useful tools, branches of utility, which it has sprouted forth from its body. So yes, that's what's at play, and you can see as well why the billionaires a year ago, 2 years ago, were building these massive, very remote and out of the way doomsday bunkers that, the cost for them stretched into the tens of millions in some cases. Zuckerberg of Meta, formerly Facebook, also built one of these. In fact, he built the largest one and the most expensive, which did go into the tens of millions, right? Why? Well, clearly, we can see why. They knew something that we did not. They knew what was planned. They themselves were making preparations for it, a contingency, in case it all went, as we say here, pear-shaped, in case it all went awry.
2024 is going to be very chaotic. It's going to be weird. There's some weird movies coming out. How many guys saw the recent movie Leave the World Behind? Anybody saw that movie there? Oh, okay, yeah, you know all these, am I watching a movie or is this a documentary realistic thing? And then I'm seeing Mark Zuckerberg just spent $100 million building a house in Hawaii with a nuclear bunker. What does he know that the rest of the world doesn't know about? Talk about the timing. Oh, accidentally, coincidentally, a week after that movie comes out, a new movie comes out. What's the name of that movie? Civil War. Leave the world behind. Our power grid in America hasn't been updated. 75% of it hasn't been updated in 50 years. And you're kind of talking about that. Then you're pitting whites against blacks. There's a line in the movie that says, Dad, you know if something goes down, we can't trust these white people. I know that's something both you and Mom agree on. Why do you put that line in the movie, Barack? And you were helping with the script. Why would you put that in the movie? Why would you put that in the movie? Barack, weren't you the same guy that gave a talk at the DNC in 2004 about bringing people together? What happened to that guy?
Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, has started to prepare for the doomsday. Yes, the Facebook founder is creating a compound which also features a doomsday bunker. He is creating this compound in Hawaii. The compound is located on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. Conservative estimates put the total price of the compound at $100 million, which comprises underground bunkers, luxurious mansions, and other self-reliant features. The massive $1 million project will have its own sources of food and energy. The secret project, which the Meta chief is apparently hiding from the public, is called Kulau Ranch. The project, which revealed that ranch is one of the most expensive personal construction projects in modern history. And it is under construction and consists of dozens of buildings, which includes 2 main mansions which will be connected through a tunnel. The tunnel will lead to an underground shelter which will have an emergency exit. The shelter will be blast resistant as well. The compound will consist of 30 bedrooms and similar number of bathrooms. Apart from this, it will also have a cluster of 11 disc-shaped tree houses. Not only this, the compound will have various security features with secret doors and much more advanced technology. It seems like the ranch is not only a retreat, but more like a potential survival base for Zuckerberg and his family in the wake of a global catastrophe.